All right. So anyway, um, when we're dealing with all these functions, there is a lot that you can do, and there's a kind of list just goes on and on and on here. So sometimes you have to think about what is another way that you could say whatever it is that they are asking of you. So in this case, if they're telling you to find the greatest, another one of those words would be the max value. And if we actually come down here, we do have max. So equals max, number one, number two, etc., etc. So you kind of select some things and say okay, and now it shows you the max number. So max, and min. Those are some that you might see. We also have median. So equals median. All right, and it says returns a median or the number in the middle of the set of given numbers. So we can go ahead and grab that with this. See that 32614.5 would be the median. Because there's four numbers, so obviously we can't go right in the middle. If I only would have selected three of those, let's just go down to B7, you'll see that it's that one. That's the middle number. So if you take one off the top, one off the bottom, one off the top, one off the bottom, yeah, that would be your median. Now, if you go to average, now if we're going back to these wonderful world of math, there is always these ever so slight differences between them, right? Average takes up all three numbers, adds them together, and divides by the total number you've selected. So in this case, 3. Where I said medium, it says, well, ignore the highest, ignore the lowest, ignore the next highest, ignore the next lowest until you get down to that middle number of the list. So that's average and median. We've already talked about min and max just a minute ago. Um, Another thing that you can do, which is kind of awesome, is we can do if statements. So we can start getting some logic built into these things. And the if statements are actually best if you do hit this FX button up here. So we do an insert function. Let's go in the stop cell. And I'm going to go with if. There we go. Okay. And now it says logic test, and I could say if, if this is greater than 500, I'd say value is true. And actually, let's make this number a lot bigger. Let's go with 3,200. Wrong way. If B5 is greater than 3,200, add one more zero to that. I could say hello, little quotes, hello, and then I could say true. Actually, let's just go with true and false. True, false. There we go. I can go ahead and hit OK, and I now can drag that down the list. And you can see the first one's less than, the second one's greater, the third one's less, the fourth one's greater. So it allows you to do some really nice, logical tests. Another one that you might be doing is, let's go back into the if s. All right. This one checks for multiple logic tests, basically. So we could say if this is greater than, the 500, and I would say, sold. I could say if this is less than 500, I could say sale, and if this equals 500, I could say I don't know, hello. Picking some random things at this point. So if I put 500 in here, you can see how those number that changes depending on what it is that I've set there. So if s and if, those are great options for you. Some things that you guys may use if you're ever trying to, yeah, trying to do some actual logic on something. So is this or is that that? Can the screen be a little bit clearer? Sure. Let's try bring this down here. Yeah. Does that make it clear? Hopefully. Guess I need to. There we go. Okay. Hopefully that is a bit clearer for you guys. A bit larger. All right. So anyway, so if those are some different things that you might see, or you're going to see actually in this. You also might see the Countif. So again, I like the little FX button for you guys when you're not quite sure what's going on. So we have Countif, and it says the range. So we could highlight that whole range, the criteria, and we're going to say greater than 500. All right, and it's basically saying that they're all greater than 500. Let's make 99. Now we're at 300. All right, so nice little, just kind of basically is counting how many cells. Now because this is set to a percentage, obviously that's why we're getting that really funky format. So now I get rid of my percentages as 3, so I could go 500 again. Double 1. Now we're up to 4. So some of those different things that you're going to see. And if we go ahead and go back to, yeah, this one, drag that down. Um, the if statements that allows you to do some logic, so you can actually make your Excel program smart. So you can kind of make it think for itself. Where, oh, if I need to do this, if I need to know if its number is greater than less than something, I can do one thing. If it's greater than less than another thing. But what about making it so it's easier for you to see that data? Um, if let's just drag this down a little bit farther. Right, looking at this text, nothing really stands out for you. It's just like, one thing, which is fine. It gets the job done, but it's not something that's really nice and pretty for your eye. There's nothing there that catches your details. If this is something um, not math related, if it was something money related and you're in a business and the company's like, if you count your drawer at the end of the day, it's more than $3, we've got problems. Well, all right, we can start taking that into account here. So we could come and do what's called conditional formatting. So under the home tab, under styles, you can see conditional formatting. And we can say highlight cell rules, and it says text that contains word sale. We go ahead and hit actually highlight everything. Conditional formatting, highlight cells, text that contains the word sale. And you can see how, well, it's changed the background color. It's actually changed the text color, and you can start doing some crazy thing here. So if I come and manage these rules, um, I can format my preview. So I could make my color purple if I wanted to for the text and the fill to be yellow or something instead. So I could apply that, hit OK, and now my text has changed color. So you can actually pick this. So it's something that helps pop it out to you for you when you're trying to see it. Makes your life a little bit easier for yourself. So conditional formatting is another powerful thing. It's definitely more used for gathering your attention than actually the program itself. The program doesn't care if it sells yellow or black or whatnot. It cares like about values and things like that. So that's kind of how you can comparing conditional formatting to if statements. So ifs are great if you're trying to do logic tests to make something automatically appear, a number change, whatever the case is. Um, yeah, the other one's not. And a great example of that would be if we were trying to do a math equation. I had 5 here, and I said equals this. I'm sorry, equals, and we're gonna do 632 divided by that, right? And I get some crazy percentage again. Let's get this back down. 126.4. Well, if that's a zero, I get this divide by zero, and it's like, that's not nice. All right, so I could come in here and I could do an if statement. I could say if this equals zero, comma, you could just say error or whatever it is you want. And then if otherwise, I could say, my 532 divided by that number. So now I get an error, or if I change this to a 1, it tells me the actual number. So it might be a little beneficial, especially if you're having issues with errors or things like that. This error could just be 0 or whatever number it is you want it to be. So, if statements are great in that aspect. Now, if we come to the top here, and you're like, yeah, these columns are too wide, right? I don't like them being that wide. I don't like having my text wrapping. We can actually do some orientation or angles. So if we come into the properties here, of course, we're not going to make it that easy, but it's okay. Anyway, I've got this selected. If we hit the under alignment at the top of the screen, we can look at the little drop down menu and bring up our format cells. We can actually change the angle, so we can make it like 20 degrees and hit OK. And now you'll see that they're all at 20 degrees. All right, and we do get some little bit of funkiness going on here because of the height. If I make that taller, now you can see how they're all nice and straight and whatnot. So you can do some crazy things with that, and then it's really nice to me, in my opinion, if you actually then do some put some borders and whatnot on the cells. I really think that starts to look kind of nice. I don't know where stuff is. Tables. When I've got my screen shrunk down, I sometimes can't find what it is I'm looking for. Oh, there it is. It's under font, Greg. Come on. So under font, we could then add all our borders, and they all go line at angles as well. So kind of a nice little thing to do sometimes when you've got limited amount of space and you want stuff to be nice and angled and whatnot, and that then allows you to kind of bring these box sizes down because we don't need as much space for everything. Now, obviously, for some stuff we still do, but not all things. So, although I have found that auto withing, it doesn't auto width nicely. Like there's, if I would have that one there. Um, so sometimes auto width does work and doesn't work. Like in this case, I'm like, there's no reason for this cell to be 2 rows. So go ahead and delete that. Now we can kind of come back and do an auto width. Like, well, no, I have decimal places down there. Anyway, you guys can kind of see what that whole angling things looks like. So that's kind of fun to do, change the orientation of your text sometimes. Changes the look and things like that. In Excel, we can do a little find and replace. So if you just want to highlight certain things and do a Control F, that brings up your find, and there's also that replace option. So if I'm going to try to find the word total, to replace that with sum instead, just for fun, and then the replace all button, and it pops up a little warning, say, hey, we've done that. So just something to think about in the back of your mind. All right, now I did just do a search for 2350, which you can see is actually on my screen. It is right here. All right, but it won't find that. And that's because it only searches your highlighted section. So if I only have that much search highlighted and I do a find, it's saying, oh, I can't find it. But if I unselect everything, I do a find all, now it will. So it is important when you have something highlighted versus not highlighted. So something to kind of keep in the back of your mind for that whole find and replace thing. Um, maybe you want to put the time and date or something like that in your file. We've done this for headers and footers. You guys we've went over that last class, I believe it was. We did headers and footers and things like that. I think under 8. Anyway, um, however, if you want to put it like in your actual sheet, like I want to put the date right here. If we go to insert data, sorry, data, formulas. And I always got my tabs backwards. And one of those things I don't use all the time. But under formulas, under the function library, it's date and time, and there are all sorts of options. And I'm sorry, this is scrolling off the top of the screen so you guys can't see it. But you could do today, which just puts the date in. If we go ahead and do a different one for date and time, you could do now. All right, which puts the date and the time. So there is a bit of a difference. So depending on what you're trying to do, if you just want to put the date in, if you want to put a specific date in, you could do that. Um, it all comes down to what you're trying to do. But for this assignment, now is definitely the one that you guys are going to be looking for. So just be aware of. And if you notice, that is a function equals NOW parenthesis parenthesis. So that is another function type that is there. Oftentimes when you guys are doing things, you might want sheet 2 because I haven't messed with that one yet. You might want this to stay along the top of your screen. So instead of scrolling down and that disappearing and you forgetting what column is what, you may want that to stay the entire time. And same thing with the first few columns. You might always want the salesperson to stay as you're scrolling around. So under the view option, under window, there are some options here. Split is the biggest one, the one that probably you guys will be using most. And this freeze, there's a freeze option around as well, freeze panes, there we go. But split will actually, if I click the button, you can see we've got a little line here that we can pick where it goes. So you can see I've got a window on the bottom that scrolls right now and text on the top that's not, but I can then scroll that down. So I have just the text I want. So now I can scroll around the bottom all I want. And the top doesn't change. You click freeze panes. You can see now I can't actually change this top one. It's stuck at just 3 and 4, but the bottom one won't go above 4. So it keeps that right at the top, allows you to see it. If we are click somewhere else when we do the split, You can see I'm out now. I can now actually can split left and right as well as top and bottom, and I can drag that to where I want it. Now when I freeze, um, A will always stay there even if I go farther to the right. So you can see I'm at A, F, G, H, I. It's skipping A, B, C. Skipping all those. But that allows you to keep always the first column, first rows, or you can kind of pick where you want it if you want to unfreeze it. So you can slide this down. You're like, I need more data than that. Top one I want to see all those, and the bottom one I don't care. So now if I freeze it, boom. Now I've got those top one rows 1 through 4 are frozen, and then everything else moves, but column A is also frozen. So that's a really useful thing. It's definitely one of those things I use more often than not, especially when you're dealing with massive tables and you're like got something with 100 rows in it, and you're like, which column's what? You just can't remember, or you don't, you've got 30 columns and you're like, which one's which? Trying to keep track of which one is which, just a pain. So freezing and splitting your window becomes super helpful and important when dealing with. You'll notice that I've been holding control, and if I scroll my wheel, you guys obviously didn't know what I was doing, but if you hold control and scroll your wheel, you can zoom in and out. You also can do that. It's kind of right behind my picture, so let me just put that back where this one picture up a little bit. So right below my picture, you'll see that there is a little zoom bar right there that you guys can click and drag, so you can zoom in more, you can zoom out more, you can kind of do what you need to. So very useful to have. But I often just hold scroll or control, and then you can scroll in and out. And it just helps you kind of better see what's going on and whatnot. So that can be a very useful thing for you, for especially when you're trying to see massive amounts of data. Um, okay, let me unfreeze. Actually, unsplit. There we go. Now, here, you think we're in Excel, right? This is for managing data. And you're like, okay, this is just one giant table. Wait, we can go back to the world of Microsoft Word. All this is one giant table. And you would be correct there. This is just one giant table. That doesn't mean that we can't have, more table-like functions, right? In Word, you can stylize tables, you can do certain things. This obviously has a red line across it, but maybe you want to do more than that. So if you select our data and we go to insert, notice there is a whole tables option, and we can just say a table. It asks you what data is your table. So I already have this selected, but you can select something. And then this checkbox here is very important. My table has headers. So in this case, mine does. It says salesperson, sales, bonus rate, bonus, base salary, and total compensation. So if I hit OK, you'll notice that A, that first column, or first row, sorry, is a different color. And B, these all have little drop downs. So with those little drop downs, we can do sorting. We can say only show certain data. We can filter things. The more data we have, obviously, the more important that becomes. So you could say I only want to see if there is it's greater than 2350, and now I see just those two. All right. The other thing that I want to point out is if you look really closely at this, and that's a poor color to choose for my circle. All right, you'll notice there's this little like symbol like this inside that button. That means there is a filter applied to that column. So you might be going like, I know there's more data here. How do I see it? And you're like, you can't find it. Well, if you look carefully at those buttons, that will tell you that there's a filter applied. So you can do a clear filter, and all of the data will come back. So that little like upside down, or that funnel basically is what it looks like to me, is great for that. And once we have these tables, once I click in here, you'll notice that we now have a table design column. And you could do, different styles if you wanted to do like black or green or, whatever the case is. You also can do like a total row. So notice I already have a total row here, but if you have the total row collected, it automatically, adds that there and asks, hey, what do you want to do? And I want to say, give me the max. Over here, I could say, well, give me the sum, and all this other fun stuff. So you can kind of pick and choose what was going on there in each of those different cells. But to get rid of a total row, you would click this if it is not built into your table like this one is. So a little give and take. Um, it all depends on your peripheral preference. I actually like having totals at the top. So if I do have like 1,000 rows of data, I don't have to scroll all the way to the bottom to see my totals. I'd much rather my total row be at the top. But that is just one of those personal preference things. Also under the table styles, you have the banded rows, um, banded columns, those types of things. If I go back here to quick styles, this will make it a little bit more obvious. So here I have banded rows, so you can see I've got a gray, then a white, and a gray, then a white, and a gray. If I don't want that, I click banded rows and it gets rid of the color differentiation. I can do the same thing with the first column. I can make it bold, the last column, banded columns. There's a lot of different options up here under these table styles. So just something that you will need to be kind of aware of. Um, you may, when we're trying to print, let's go ahead and put banded rows back on to make our life a little bit easier. Again, if we have a crap load of data, copy this all and we'll just paste it a whole got it once. Whole thing here. There we go. Now we're starting to get lots of data here, right? More data than you'll probably deal with in a long time, but hey, data nonetheless. So we copy one more time for good measure. Now we've got like 100 rows of data going on. So this isn't going to all fit on one page. And right now, if I would do a file and I do a print, you can see I've got multiple different pages here, and only the first page has the chart tops on it. So if I scroll down, go to the next page, see that one, it just gives me there's no there's no column titles there. And I'm going, what the hell does that mean? What's going on? And when you have lots of data like this, you should always have those column titles repeated on every page. If that's a Word document or Excel, either way, the same idea is going on there. So if we come in here to page layout and we go ahead and expand our page setup, there it is. Under the sheet section, we can say rows to repeat at top. So I'm going to click on that and I'm just going to say I want to repeat, nope, just this row at the top. So I can go ahead and hit OK. And now if I go to my print preview here, you'll see page one, that data is there. If I go to the next page, that again, it tells me right at the top. So that it's at the top of every single page now. Um, so that just makes your life a lot easier when you're trying to read this data, and it keeps people from getting pissed off at you when you've got 4 or 5 pages of data that you're expecting them to look through, and it's like, what was this column again? You have to like find the first page and make sure it's on there. So again, that was under page setup, and then we went to sheet, and then we said rows to repeat at top. That's a great one. Uh, you can rename tabs. So at the bottom down here, we notice we have sheet 1 and sheet 2. This one's November. These are both. This is Arizona. This is Washington. So maybe you want to rename this one Washington. So that way you know it's Washington, and rename this one Arizona. All right, makes your life a little bit easier. And then if you want to go a step farther, you're like the Arizona company, that is our green company, and the Washington company, that is our red company. You keep adding things with different colors depending on the group that you have. So maybe that's something that you're interested in. So you can rename and color things, and again, that's purely for your benefit for organization. Trying to make things jump out at you when you're trying to think. You don't have to always go, oh, which one? Arizona, Washington. You don't have to read them all. You just go, oh, the red one, okay, or the green one. Again, just tries to streamline that process for you. You can group tabs. So if I click on a sheet, I click on Arizona, and I click all the way over here to sheet 1, you'll notice that they all kind of become highlighted at the same time. They are now all grouped. So if I remember correctly, if I like bold this on 1, if I come over here to Washington, you can see how every A2 now is bolded. So if I would format this as a table now, go ahead and insert and do my table action again. Now Washington would be formatted that way, and this sheet would be formatted that way as well if I had data in it. And let me go ahead and, I don't know, go with, do that. So I'm on Arizona, which already has the angled, but we can format them all to 45 degrees. And if we come to Washington, that did not apply. Grouping will apply a lot of things. You use pivot table. I do not often use pivot table. I'm not going to lie. It's something that you might come across every once in a while, but it's not something that I generally often use, at least. it's something that is there. Um, all right, but anyway, so you can kind of group things, and then to ungroup, you have to right click, I believe it is, and then select, so ungroup. So once you're done, you go ahead and ungroup like that. So it gets you back to being just one select. Or if you actually, right now I'm grouped, you can tell because it's got like a light green and it kind of fades, and a light red and it fades. If I click on sheet one, which wasn't part of the group, I've automatically ungrouped. So that's another option for you. And the simulation will have you doing some stuff with grouping and things like that, with some organization and folding and formatting and things. So something to kind of just keep in the back of your um, yep. Okay. So we already did hit up conditional formatting some. It is, that's going to be an important topic. It makes your life a little bit easier in the long run when you are having problems, or trying to look up data and things like that. So just something to be aware of. Now I know some of you guys have asked me questions, again about like how do I do something, and or you're having issues doing it. So here I have. I'm gonna have to go back to full screen here. Well, we'll try this. Here I did a little submission. Did you use pivot table? No. Okay, I'm a little confused what you're asking, Kennedy. I'm not gonna lie with you. All right. Okay. So, um, we just lost Colleen again. Anyway, with the assignments. So after you guys all have multiple attempts at things, and the simulations are not any different. You have multiple attempts with the simulations as well. So you can come in and see the submissions. So if I go back to my assignment calendar, and we let the page think for 5 minutes, as you all know it likes to do. We go to the 11th. I come down here. I can go view submission for my simulation. Then I can click on it, and then I can go by question, and I can do launch training. So for example, let's go ahead to question 24. Get rid of my question pop-up, and then here there's a launch training option. And this is going to be super scrunched. Not horrible, actually. So this will then allow you to, kind of walk you through things. And this is to me, a much more walkthrough when you have unlimited attempts to try to do something right. But more importantly, you also have this learning aids button. So you can actually then say practice, and you will hear it walk like audibly.
Range A4 through A19. Right-click the range, and from the shortcut menu, click Copy.
So you can do that. We can then say copy, and it says, okay. Normally that works. Why it didn't. Go. And now I'll say copy.
Click the In-Store Sales Sheet tab. Right-click cell A4 and
Anyway, you can kind of see how it's walking you through this step by step. So if you really can't figure out how to do something, your book isn't explaining it well to you, or the internet isn't explaining it well to you, it does kind of suck to then have to go through and do the whole training over again, the whole simulation, because it is from the get-go. Um, but it allows you to do it. Um, I'm always half tempted when this isn't obviously part of my grade for this because I'm teaching it. And I have gone through these things and been like, okay, I know what this wants me to do. How do they want me to do it? Like, I'm not quite sure exactly how they do it, because how I would do it and how the simulation does it are two slightly different things. It's like, well, I would get there by doing this, and I try to do it, and it's like, you can't do that. It's like, but I can. It will get me there. So this training is a really great way to get there. You have to have submitted one of your training um, options, your opportunities, one of your chances, though, before you can come into this. But it does allow you to set go question by question, which is really nice. So if you're like, okay, now I understand how to do 24, let me go ahead and look at 33. Change. All right. And then you could launch training for 33, and you would and you could come through and do that one. Now, this isn't being graded, so after you've done it here, you then have to go back and do the simulation again. So you have to go from the get-go. But it is a great option for you if you're like, I'm really unhappy with my score. I want to know how to do these things a bit better. That training will put you there. Now, personally, especially if you use the practice here, I'm not sure how much
On the
you're actually learning from the practice because it's like click here and it gives you an option. Then do this. Like it's forcing you to do certain things, and I'm not quite sure how much learning you're actually getting out of that. So that is one of those kind of give and take things. So it's a great resource for you, but I wouldn't say this should be your first location to go. I'd say read through your book and whatnot. Um, Someone also told me the videos, if we go into the course materials for the chapter, those were really helpful for them. Um, I haven't looked through them all that closely, but they did say that those videos were very helpful. So under student resources videos. So um, just something to think about. Lots of videos there. All right. I think that I've hit up like all of the main points from this chapter. All the like different functions and things like that you guys will be doing. Um, so just kind of something for you guys to think about. Anybody have any questions for me?